The screen read 103.4 degrees. My son was burning up, his breathing shallow. I called my husband, Mark, straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. The third time. He picked up, his voice ice. "Stop calling me. You're spiraling." He hung up. 20 minutes later, as I held Leo, sobbing, the doorbell rang. It wasn't the pediatrician. It was 2 Scottsdale police officers, and they weren't there to help. "My name is Eliza. The silence in this house is a living thing. It's a bright, sterile Scottsdale, Arizona silence, the kind that presses in on you from the high ceilings and the cool tile floors. I'm a graphic designer, or at least I was before Leo. Now I'm just here, on leave, and my 6-month-old son was convulsing. His skin, usually so soft, felt like it was radiating heat from a furnace. The thermometer confirmed what my hands already knew, 103.4. His little body went rigid for a moment, a tiny, terrifying arc, and then he went limp. His breathing was fast and shallow, a frantic little puffing that did not seem to be getting any air. Panic, the cold, sharp kind that paralyzes a new mother, seized my throat. I grabbed my phone, my thumb slipping on the screen. Mark. I called my husband. Mark. He works at Viridian Capital, a place where the numbers matter more than people, but I did not know that yet. Not really. The call went straight to voicemail. "Mark, pick up, it's Leo. He's really sick. Mark, please." I hung up, called again. Voicemail. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I tried his desk line. Ringing. Ringing. Then his voice. Not the concerned husband voice, but the managing director voice. "Eliza. What?" "He's seizing. Mark. His fever is over 103. He's barely breathing." A heavy sigh came through the receiver. "Eliza, he's fine. It's a fever. You're being dramatic." "No, you don't understand. He was shaking. I am in a make-or-break meeting." He cut me off, his voice flat, devoid of any warmth. "You are being over-anxious. Give him some Tylenol and stop spiraling." "Spiraling, Mark. Please. I think we need to go to the ER. Stop calling me." The click was loud, final. I stared at the phone. He hung up. He hung up on me. I tried his cell again, straight to voicemail. He had blocked me, or turned it off. I sent a text, a picture of the thermometer screen. 103.4, another of Leo, pale and listless in my arms. "Please. He needs help." No reply. The blue delivered receipt was a mockery. I was alone. Completely. The silence of the house was deafening, broken only by Leo's weak, rattling gasps. I held him for another minute, rocking, pleading with a God I was not sure I believed in. Then I made the call I should have made first. 911. "What is your emergency?" "My baby," I sobbed, the words tumbling out. "He's 6 months old. He had a seizure. His fever is so high. He's having trouble breathing." The dispatcher's voice was calm, a lifeline. "Okay, ma'am, an ambulance is on its way. Stay on the line with me." I was trying to listen to her instructions, trying to unlock the front door while balancing Leo, when the sound came. Not a siren. A banging. A hard, aggressive pounding that shook the heavy oak door. It was not a concerned neighbor knock. It was a knock of authority. I stumbled back, clutching Leo tighter. The dispatcher was still talking in my ear. "Ma'am, is someone at your door?" I think so," I whispered. The banging came again, louder. "Scottsdale PD, open the door. Police." Why, I cracked the door open, my body shielded behind it. 2 officers stood on my welcome mat, hands near their belts. Their faces were grim. Officer Riley, Officer Bova. Their name tags were stark white. "Ma'am, are you Eliza?" Riley asked. "Yes, my son is sick. The ambulance is coming." "We're not here about the ambulance, ma'am," Bova said, his eyes scanning past me, into my pristine, Silent house. We're responding to a wellness check, a possible domestic disturbance. My blood ran cold. Disturbance. There's no... I'm alone with my baby. Officer Riley looked down at his notepad. We received a call from a Mark, at this address. Stated his wife was unstable, off her medication. Said you might be a danger to the child. The air left my lungs. It was a physical blow. Unstable. Off her medication. A danger. He had not been in a meeting. He had been on the phone with the police. He had taken my exhaustion, my very real, very normal postpartum fear, and twisted it into a weapon. He had painted me as insane. Just then, the wail of the siren grew louder, culminating in a screech of brakes at the curb. The paramedics ran up the walkway, carrying their kits. She's the mother, one of them said, trying to get to Leo. Oh, hold on, Officer Riley said, putting a hand up, stopping them. We need to secure the scene first. Secure the scene, I shrieked, my voice cracking. He can't breathe. The paramedic, a woman with kind eyes, pushed past the officer. The baby is in respiratory distress. I'm taking him. As she scooped Leo from my arms, Officer Bova stepped in front of me. Ma'am, we need you to step outside. We just have to ask you a few questions. They were taking me. They were questioning me. While my son was being loaded into an ambulance, the husband who had ignored my calls had successfully turned me into the criminal. The air in the hospital emergency room was thick with the smell of antiseptic and anxiety. They had not let me ride in the ambulance with Leo, the police. Officers Riley and Bova had insisted I accompany them. Their questions were a blur of polite, veiled accusations. Have you been feeling overwhelmed lately? Eliza. Are you currently prescribed any medication, ma'am? Now I was sitting in a small, windowless family consultation room. It felt like an interrogation cell. The walls were a pale, sickly yellow. Leo was somewhere behind a set of imposing double doors, where I could hear the muted beeps of machinery and urgent, low voices. A woman entered, closing the door softly behind her. She was not a nurse. Her suit was gray, her smile a tight, professional line. Eliza, I'm Ms. Davies, from Child and Family Services. I need to ask you a few questions about what happened at the house today. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were not. They were assessing me. My son, I said, my voice cracking. I need to see my son. Is he okay? The doctors are doing everything they can. He's in the best hands, she said, a well-rehearsed non-answer. I understand you've been feeling stressed. Your husband, Mark, called 911. He's very worried about you. He hung up on me, I said, the words tasting like acid. Leo was sick. I called him for help, and he told me I was being dramatic. He told me to stop spiraling. Ms. Davies just looked at me, her pen poised over her notepad. It's very common for new mothers to feel overwhelmed, Eliza. Sometimes it can be hard to trust your own judgment. She was treating me like a suspect, not a mother terrified for her child. My mind splintered, flashing back. It was not always like this. When I was pregnant, Mark was a different man. He was the man who rubbed my swollen feet, who assembled the crib himself, cursing at the confusing instructions while I laughed. He would press his ear to my stomach, whispering, "Hello, our little champion." He was attentive, proud, and protective. The shift began after Leo was born, subtle as a hairline crack in porcelain. Mark started staying later at Viridian Capital. The market's volatile, Eliza, he would say, shrugging off his expensive jacket at 10 p.m., smelling faintly of whiskey. He stopped asking how I was feeling. Instead, he began to offer critiques. Are you sure you're supposed to be holding him that much? You're going to spoil him. The house is a mess, Eliza. I know you're tired, but this is getting ridiculous. I was surviving on 2-hour increments of sleep, my body still healing, my world reduced to feeding schedules and the color of my son's waist. He saw only failure. Then came the comments about money. I was on my 12-week maternity leave. My reduced paycheck's a fraction of his. I was looking at the accounts, he said one night, his face illuminated by the blue light of his tablet. This graphic design work, you're not exactly contributing much right now, are you? I'm keeping our son alive, Mark. Right. But we're a team. And right now, one person is pulling all the weight. He even looked at me, my body still soft and changed from pregnancy, and frowned. You should really try to get to the gym. It would probably help your mood. The final lock clicked into place about a month ago. This is inefficient, he declared, holding 2 different bank statements. We're bleeding money with 2 sets of accounts. I'm going to consolidate everything. It's just easier for me to manage the portfolio. He had me transfer my entire savings, the nest egg I had carefully built for a decade before I even met him, into a new joint account. An account that, I soon discovered, I could view, but not access. My debit card was declined at the grocery store. I just moved things around, he had said smoothly, not looking up from his laptop. Just use the joint credit card, the one I pay. He had built a wall around me, smooth and perfect on the outside, but utterly impenetrable. I was his wife, his dependent, his prisoner. Eliza, Ms. Davies's voice snapped me back to the sickly yellow room. I must have been staring at the wall. Your husband is on his way, she said, her expression unchanged. He's bringing some paperwork. Paperwork. Yes, she said, glancing at her notes. He mentioned he has your records, your history of mental instability. I blinked, the words not computing. What I don't have a history of anything. He mentioned postpartum depression, she said, her voice neutral. That you'd been refusing your medication. The floor dropped out. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not an overreaction. It was a construction, a pre-planned, carefully built narrative. I have never been diagnosed with depression. I have never been prescribed medication for it. He was not just lying to the police. He was building a case. He was fabricating an entire history. The door opened, and there he was. Mark. His tie was perfectly knotted. His face was a mask of deep, agonizing concern. He looked like the husband of the year, rushed from his high-powered job to his wife's side. Eliza, my God, honey. He rushed toward me, arms open for an embrace. I saw the 2 officers, Riley and Bova, standing in the hallway right behind him. He was performing for them, for Ms. Davies. I reacted instinctively. I flinched, my whole body recoiling. I pushed my chair back so hard it scraped the linoleum and hit the wall. His concerned expression faltered for a fraction of a second. A flicker of pure annoyance crossed his features, but he recovered instantly. She's clearly not herself, he said, turning to Miss Davies with a sad, helpless shake of his head. He turned back to me, his voice soft, patronizing, and loud enough for everyone to hear. It's okay, baby. I'm here now. I told them you just need help. Then he turned back to Ms. Davies, lifting a thick manila folder he had been carrying. Here, he said, handing it to her. This is what I was talking about. Her records. The journal she's been keeping. Everything. I'm so worried about her. And about Leo. A doctor. A kind-looking woman who seemed worlds away from the drama in the hallway, finally entered. She ignored Mark, Ms. Davies, and the lingering officers, and walked straight to me. Mrs. Harris, I'm Dr. Aris. We've stabilized Leo. His oxygen is up. It's acute bronchiolitis. Very scary in a baby this young, but he's responding well to the treatment. We need to keep him overnight, possibly for 48 hours, just for observation. I sagged in relief, the tears that I had been holding back finally spilling over. He's okay. Oh, thank God. Mark immediately seized the moment, stepping forward to put his arm around me. You see, baby, he's fine. You were just overtired. He squeezed my shoulder, a gesture that looked like comfort but felt like a vice. He turned his sympathetic gaze on Ms. Davies, who was still holding the manila folder. This will explain everything. As Ms. Davies was about to open the folder, a new voice cut through the air, sharp, clear, and radiating absolute authority. What, precisely, is going on here? Jenna, my sister. She stood in the doorway, a force of nature in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit. Jenna is a litigator in Phoenix, 40 years old, and she operates at a frequency that intimidates everyone, including, I always suspected, Mark. I had managed to send her one garbled, panicked text from the police car hospital. Mark called cops on me. They think I'm crazy. Help. Jenna's eyes took in the scene in less than a second. Me, disheveled and crying. Mark, playing the role of concerned husband. Ms. Davies, looking official, and 2 uniformed police officers hovering in the hall. Jenna, thank God, Mark started, switching his performance to relieved brother-in-law. Eliza's had, well, she's had a bit of a breakdown. These kind people are just trying to help. Jenna ignored him completely. She walked straight to Ms. Davies. I am Jenna Hale, Eliza's sister and her legal counsel. You will give me that folder. Now. Ms. Davies bristled. This is a confidential file pertaining to a child welfare check. This, Jenna interrupted, her voice dropping, is a private medical consultation, and you, she pointed to the officers, are trespassing. Officer Riley, Officer Bova, I see your name tags. You will remove yourselves from this doorway, or I will file a harassment complaint with your superior before you can even get back to your patrol car. The officers, suddenly finding themselves outgunned, muttered something about the call being cleared and vanished down the hall. Jenna turned back to Ms. Davies. The folder, Mr. Harris provided. I don't care who provided it. It's a file concerning my client, and you are attempting to use it to interrogate her without counsel present, immediately following a medical emergency involving her infant son. Give it to me, or I will personally see to it that your license to practice social work is put under review for gross misconduct and HIPAA violations. Ms. Davies's face went pale. She handed the folder over. Jenna snapped it open. Mark's confident smile tightened. She scanned the first page, then the second. Her face was granite. I could see the contents from where I sat. There were printouts of my text messages. Desperate, exhausted texts from 3 in the morning. I'm so tired I could die. I can't do this anymore. Then, a small leather-bound notebook, a journal I had never seen in my life, and at the bottom, an empty amber prescription bottle. Jenna looked at the label on the bottle. She looked at me. Have you ever been prescribed this? No, I whispered. I don't even know what that is. Jenna snapped the folder shut. Ms. Davies, she said, her voice dangerously quiet. This investigation is over. You have been given fabricated evidence in a clear attempt to subvert a custody hearing. If you contact my client again, it will be considered witness tampering. Ms. Davies, realizing she had been played, gathered her things and left without a word. Now, it was just the 3 of us. Mark's facade finally cracked. The worry was gone, replaced by a cold fury. Jenna, you have no right. Shut up, Mark, Jenna said, turning to face him. You have exactly 1 chance to get out of this room before I call hospital security. She took a step toward him. You did this. You called the police on your wife while your son was sick. You built this pathetic little pile of lies. Get out. I am his father. I have a right to be here. You have the right to remain silent, Jenna shot back. I suggest you exercise it. She picked up her phone and made a call, her back to him. Yes, I need a pediatric transport for Leo Harris. We're moving him. Authorization code is JHale779er. Yes, to the private pediatric wing at Phoenix Children's. Mark stared, speechless. She was moving my son. You can't do that. I just did. You are a threat to the emotional well-being of my client and, by extension, to her child's stability. We are leaving. Try to stop us. I dare you. Mark looked at me, then at Jenna. He saw no weakness. He knew, in that moment, that he had lost. He straightened his tie, his face a mask of stone, and walked out. The silence he left behind was profound. Jenna hung up the phone and finally, her shoulders slumped. The litigator vanished, and my big sister was there. "Hey," she said, her voice soft. "I've got you. We're getting out of here." I just nodded, unable to speak. We were transferred within the hour. The new room was high up, quiet, and overlooked the city lights of Phoenix. Leo was sleeping peacefully in a state-of-the-art crib. Jenna sat in the chair opposite me. "Eliza," she said, her voice firm, pulling me from my daze. "You need to understand what this is. This is not a rough patch. This is not a man having a bad day. This is not a marriage you can save." She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. "This is a war. He's been planning this. That ridiculous file proves it. He's trying to get full custody of Leo by painting you as an unstable, crazy mother. That 911 call was his opening move to have you institutionalized." The word war echoed in the quiet room. It was terrifying, and it was true. "You are not going back to that house," Jenna said. "Ever. When Leo is discharged, you are both coming home with me. My penthouse is secure. He can't get to you. We're going to let him wonder where you are." "And then," she said, a cold, strategic light entering her eyes, "we are going to take him apart." Jenna's penthouse was a fortress of glass and steel. For 2 days, Leo and I had been suspended in the quiet, high above Phoenix. Mark had been calling, a frantic, desperate barrage of texts and voicemails. "Eliza, where are you? I'm worried sick. Jenna, this is kidnapping." Jenna had simply blocked his number on my phone and set her office to screen his calls. "He's pivoting to concerned victim," Jenna said, not looking up from the glowing screen of her laptop. Her kitchen island was our new war room, covered in legal pads and binders. "He's trying to establish a timeline of your disappearance. He wants to play the mental game. Eliza, fine. We're going to play the financial one. He says you're crazy. We're going to prove he's a thief." The first discovery came from the bank records for the joint account, the one he had so kindly offered to manage for me. It was a one-way street. My lingering paychecks and freelance deposits went in, but a steady stream of money was flowing out. "Look at this," Jenna said, her finger tracing a line on the screen. A series of wire transfers, 10,000 here, 25,000 there, all to the same entity, Highwater Development LLC. I read aloud. "What is that A Stock A fund?" A new, cold dread, different from the panic at the hospital, began to creep into my stomach. "Jenna," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "My inheritance. From my grandmother. It was $200,000. Jenna's fingers stopped typing. "He told me he was putting it in a high-yield trust for Leo, that he would handle it to make sure it was safe from market volatility. That was 6 months ago, right before Leo was born." Jenna's expression was grim. She typed for a full minute, her brow furrowed. Then she let out a long, slow breath. "Eliza, he never opened a trust. He deposited the check, all 200,000, directly into that joint account. The next day," she clicked a final time. "The next day, he wired the entire $200,000 to Highwater Development. It's gone. He stole it," I said, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. "He wouldn't. It was for Leo." "He stole it," Jenna confirmed, her voice flat. "Which means we need to find out what Highwater is, and we need to do it without tipping him off." Jenna made a call. "Gus, I need you. It's personal." Gus arrived the next morning. He was a man in his late 50s, a former Scottsdale police detective who now worked as a private investigator. He wore a rumpled shirt and had the most patient, tired eyes I had ever seen. He listened to the entire story, from Mark's critiques of my mothering to the fabricated journal and the 911 call. He did not look surprised. He just nodded. "He's a planner," Gus said, his voice a low rumble. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was a business plan. Gus worked faster than I thought possible. He returned in less than 24 hours. He laid a document on Jenna's glass dining table. "This is the deed to your house in Scottsdale," he said. "Or rather, the loan agreement against it. We have a mortgage, yes. You have two," Gus said. "This one was taken out 3 months ago, for $300,000. I looked at the signature page. There, in a passable imitation of my own looping cursive, was my name. I never signed that." "He forged your signature," Jenna said, her voice vibrating with a cold fury I had never heard from her. "He leveraged your home, stole your inheritance, and drained your savings. He has been systematically liquidating you, Eliza." "So, who is she?" I asked, the question tasting like ash. "The other woman, who is Highwater Development." "That's the twist," Gus said, sliding another document across the table, the Articles of Incorporation for the LLC. "I ran the partners. Mark Harris is one, of course. The other one. It's not another woman." I read the name listed as the second officer of the company, Margaret Harris. "Margaret," I said, confused. "His mother." The room went silent. "Margaret. The woman who brought over lasagna when Leo was born. The one who told Mark I was looking a little ragged and probably needed more help than I was letting on." "It's not an affair," Jenna said, the pieces clicking into place in her eyes. "Oh my God, it's so much worse. An affair is messy. This is a hostile takeover." Jenna's legal team, now armed with the names, dug into Viridian Capital. The truth, when it came, was brutal and simple. "He's not leaving you for someone else," Jenna explained, pacing in front of the window. "He's buying out 2 senior partners at Viridian who are set to retire. He's using your money, the $500,000 he stole from you, to fund his buy-in. He's making a move for a managing partnership." I finally understood. The whole horrifying picture. If he's making a power move at a conservative firm like that, he can't be in a messy public divorce, I said, the words coming out numbly. "He can't be the man who abandoned his wife." "No," Jenna said, stopping to look at me. "He has to be the hero, the stable, brilliant man, tragically burdened by a spiraling wife, the devoted father who had to rescue his child. He gets full custody. He gets to keep all the assets because you're unfit, and he gets his promotion. He gets everything. You're not his wife. You're just a liability he's clearing off the books." Margaret. The name hung in the air of Jenna's penthouse, heavier than any physical object. It did not just connect the LLC, it connected everything. My mind rewound, playing back the last 6 months, but this time with a new, horrifying filter. I saw Margaret Harris, my mother-in-law, in my house, the picture of the perfect, supportive grandmother. She had been there constantly after Leo was born, arriving at 9 a.m. every morning, her expensive cashmere always immaculate, her smile perfectly sympathetic. "Eliza, darling, you look exhausted," she would murmur, taking Leo from my arms. "Utterly ravaged. Why don't you go lie down? I'll take care of Leo. You just rest." At the time, I had cried with gratitude. Now, I saw it for what it was. It was not an offer of help. It was an assessment of my weakness. I remembered the way her eyes followed me, the faint, constant disapproval. "Is he crying again?" she would ask, her tone suggesting it was a personal failing of mine. "My Mark was such a good baby, always so calm. Perhaps you're just not producing enough milk. Some women just aren't built for it." She was the one who constantly refilled Mark's wine glass at dinner, listening with a tilted head as he complained about the messy house or my moodiness. "Be patient, son," she would say, patting his hand. She's just delicate. She's overwhelmed. You need to be the strong one. The prescription bottle, the one Mark had presented to the social worker. Jenna had it, sealed in an evidence bag in her briefcase. Gus, I asked, my voice flat. That bottle, can you trace it? He already had. It's not an antidepressant. It's not an antipsychotic. He reported back the next day. It's an older prescription for a very strong migraine medication. Expired 2 years ago. I waited for the rest. I knew what was coming. It was prescribed to Margaret Harris. He finished. She had given it to him. She had reached into her own medicine cabinet and pulled out the perfect prop. A prop to prove her son's wife was mentally unstable. The seed. I remembered when she planted it. I was 8 months pregnant, anxious and hormonal, complaining about a bad dream I'd had. Mark was telling me to relax. Margaret had put her cool, dry hand on his arm. Now, Mark, you need to be watchful, she had said, her voice a low, concerned coo. My friend Cynthia's daughter-in-law. She had a terrible time after the baby. A complete break. She became paranoid, thought everyone was against her. They nearly had to intervene for the child's safety. Eliza is so emotional. We just need to be prepared to help her if she loses her way. She had handed him the script. She had given him the words unstable, paranoid, break. She had been priming him to see me not as a tired new mother, but as a ticking time bomb. Gus brought the final proof. He had retrieved data from Mark's cloud backups. It included emails, not just from Mark, but from Margaret. They had not been planning this for weeks. They had been planning this since I was pregnant. Mark. She's crying over a car commercial. I'm worried she's not going to be strong enough for this. Margaret, darling, I've told you, she doesn't have the constitution. It's not her fault. It's her breeding. She's not one of us. You are a Harris. You cannot let her drag you and my grandson down. You have to protect your family's legacy. If she becomes a problem, we must be prepared to act in the child's best interest. You need to start keeping records, just in case. Her breeding. It was that simple. I was the daughter of a teacher from Tucson. I was not from their world of private equity and generational wealth. I was not worthy of their bloodline. She was rescuing her son and her grandson from me. Then, the final, coldest realization hit me. The journal, I whispered, looking at Jenna. The journal Mark gave the social worker. The one he said I wrote. Gus nodded grimly. He had a photocopy. We compared the handwriting to greeting cards Margaret sent you. It's a perfect match. I took the pages. It was her handwriting, neat, looping, and utterly damning. It was not my journal. It was her surveillance log. April 4th. Eliza seems listless. Let the baby cry for almost 3 minutes before picking him up. I had to remind her to change him. She seems disconnected. April 10th. House is a complete mess. Old food on the counter. Eliza was still in her pajamas at 2 p.m. Mark is getting very distressed. He's worried she might hurt herself, or the baby. April 14th. She yelled at Mark. She accused him of not helping. A complete hysterical episode over nothing. I had to ask Mark to go for a drive just to calm the situation. She is becoming erratic. She had been there every day, not to help, but to document. She had twisted every moment of my exhaustion, every hormonal tear, every messy, chaotic, normal second of new motherhood, and reframed it as the slow descent into madness. She was the architect. Mark was just her willing executioner. It was the hardest thing I have ever done, driving back to that sterile Scottsdale house, back to the man who had tried to have me committed. Jenna had coached me for hours. You are not a victim, she repeated. You are a spy. You are going back to retrieve our ammunition. You are broken. You are contrite. You are weak. You are whatever he needs you to be until we have him. I called him from the road. Mark! I made my voice small, watery. I'm so sorry. I'm coming home. The relief in his voice was palpable, and it was sickening. It was the relief of a man whose plan was back on track. He was waiting on the porch when I pulled in. He had even managed to look tired, as if he had been the one through an ordeal. "Eliza," he said, pulling me into a hug that I had to force myself not to recoil from. "God, you scared me." I buried my face in his chest, the smell of his cologne making me want to gag. "You were right," I whispered, the words like poison on my tongue. I was so overwhelmed. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just need your help." Over his shoulder, I saw Margaret watching from the kitchen window, her face a perfect mask of concerned satisfaction. The trap was set, and the prey had just walked right back into it. "Of course, baby," he said, stroking my hair. "We'll get you the help you need. Mom and I, we've got you. We've got Leo." They were smug. For the next 3 days, they treated me like a delicate porcelain doll that had been cracked. Margaret came over every day to help with Leo, which really meant to watch me. Mark handled all my calls, spoke to me in slow, simple sentences. They thought they had won. They thought I was a broken bird. They forgot what I did for a living. I am a designer. I live in the digital world. I understand code, hardware, and the quiet, invisible ways data moves. On the 4th day, Mark went into the office for a full day of meetings. Margaret was running errands. I had 2 hours. I went to his home office, a room I had once helped design, now his inner sanctum. I took the tiny thumbnail-sized USB drive from my pocket. It was a keylogger, simple, effective. I plugged it into the back of his desktop computer, hidden in the nest of cables. 5 seconds. I was done. Next, the baby monitor. The one he and Margaret had insisted on, the one with the video feed. I took a new one I had bought in cash, from my bag. It looked identical, but I had modified this one. The audio receiver was now also a high-fidelity digital recorder, feeding to a secure, anonymous cloud account. I swapped them. The old monitor went into the bottom of the diaper bag. I had the digital trap set. Now for the physical. I knew Mark. He was arrogant. He believed in physical trophies. Where would he hide the real paperwork? Not in his office. Too obvious. The wine cabinet. His pride and joy. A massive temperature-controlled unit. I ran my fingers along the bottom, beneath the racks of expensive bottles he boasted about. My fingernail caught on a seam. A false bottom, held by a magnetic lock. I used a strong magnet from Leo's toy block set, and it clicked open. It was all there. Not the faked journal, but the real files. The Highwater Development LLC folder. The original bank statements showing the $500,000 liquidation of my inheritance and the second mortgage. The forged signature looked even more insulting on the original paper. I took photos of everything with a burner phone Jenna had given me. Then I put it all back, exactly as I had found it. That evening, I got what I needed. Margaret came for dinner. I felt overwhelmed and said I needed to lie down. I left the baby monitor, my monitor, on the nightstand in the master bedroom, where I was resting. But I was in the walk-in closet, my laptop open, listening to the live feed. Their voices were low, confident. They were in the kitchen, drinking his expensive wine. "She's completely folded," Mark said. I could hear the smile in his voice. "She's eating out of my hand. She apologized. Said I was right." "I told you, darling." Margaret's smooth voice replied. "She doesn't have the strength. She's weak. It's in her blood. Now, we just have to be patient." "How patient?" Mark asked. "I need this finalized before the new partnership is announced." "Just one more episode," Margaret said, her voice chilling me to the bone. "One more breakdown, something public, something the police or a doctor can witness. After what happened at the hospital, one more event is all the court will need to see. They will have to grant you emergency custody. She'll be declared unfit. It will be a mercy. Really, a mercy. They were planning to destroy me as a mercy. I had the domestic trap, but the keylogger gave me the final devastating piece. Later that night, after he was asleep, I retrieved the data. I saw his calendar. The make or break meeting he had mentioned on that first terrible day, it was not with Viridian Capital. He was not buying out partners. He was leaving. He was in deep negotiations with Scylla Investments, Viridian's most ruthless competitor. He was preparing to jump ship. And what was his buy-in? His leverage? My $200,000 in inheritance. The $300,000 from the fraudulent second mortgage on our house. He was pitching himself as a new partner, bringing in a $500,000 capital contribution. He was not just lying to me. He was lying to his mother. He was lying to his own firm. He was planning to burn down his entire life and build a new one, funded by my stolen money, with my son at his side and me in a mental institution. He was a snake, and I had just found the ledger of every single person he planned to bite. The key was not Margaret. Jenna had made that clear. Margaret was the architect of the emotional war, but she was a symptom. The disease was Mark, and the heart of the disease was his ambition. His obsession with his work was not just a distraction, it was the entire motive. "He's not just defrauding you," Jenna had said, her eyes alight with a cold, legal fire. "He's defrauding his new partners. That is the lever." I took another day, resting at home, while Jenna's team worked. She secured the meeting. It was not for Eliza Harris, the unstable wife. It was for Elizabeth Hale, a private investor from San Francisco, referred by a contact in Jenna's firm who was interested in a 7-figure investment with Scylla. Jenna prepped me. This was not a plea for sympathy. It was a business transaction. "You are not a woman scorned," she instructed me, fixing my collar. "You are a counterparty. You are a shark in their tank. You have information that is toxic to their bottom line. Act like it." I wore my sister's suit, a sharp charcoal gray that felt like armor. I walked into the Scylla Investments lobby, a cathedral of glass and brushed steel. I was led to a conference room on the top floor. Mrs. Alvarez was exactly as I had pictured. She was in her 50s, impeccably dressed, with a gaze so sharp it felt like it could cut glass. She did not smile. She offered water, not coffee. She was all business. "Ms. Hale, thank you for coming in. My team said you had a specific opportunity you wanted to discuss," she began, her hands folded on the polished table. "I do," I said, my voice betraying none of the terror I felt. I pushed a thin, leather-bound file across the table. "It's about a new partner you're bringing on, Mark Harris." Her eyes narrowed, just slightly. "We don't discuss our personnel decisions with outside investors." "You will want to discuss this one," I said. "The man you are about to bring into your firm is funding his buy-in entirely with stolen and fraudulent assets. Specifically, my assets." I opened my file. I did not show her Margaret's journal. I did not show her the audio recordings. She would dismiss that as marital drama. I showed her the balance sheet. "This is a bank statement showing the wire transfer of my $200,000 inheritance into his account," I said, my finger pointing to the line item. "And this is the fraudulent second mortgage document taken out on my home with my forged signature for an additional $300,000. Both funds were funneled into an LLC called Highwater Development. His capital contribution. It's all stolen." Alvarez was silent. She studied the documents. Her expression was cold, calculating. She was not horrified. She was annoyed. "This is a domestic dispute, Ms. Hale, a very messy one. You are accusing your husband of theft. That's a matter for the police, not for my firm." She slid the documents back toward me. "Frankly, his personal life is his own business, as long as it doesn't affect his performance." She was right. She did not care if he was a monster. She just cared if he could make her money. "I understand," I said calmly. I had expected this. This was the moment. I slid a single USB drive across the table. His personal life is his business, but his professional life is yours, and he's not just defrauding me. He's defrauding his current employer, Viridian Capital. Her hand stopped on its way to her water glass. He's planning to walk over to your firm with their entire proprietary client list, their current trade algorithms, and their Q4 projections. I said, he is a massive, walking, legal liability. And he's about to be your liability. Her eyes went from annoyed to ice cold. She did not ask me how I got it. She did not care. She inserted the USB into her laptop. I had curated the keylogger data. It was just a simple text file. She saw the email drafts to his personal account, filled with data. She saw the file names he was copying. Viridian Client Master Q4.xls. Alpha Strategy Notes, PDF. She stared at the screen for a long, silent minute. She was calculating the cost, the inevitable lawsuit from Viridian, the reputational damage, the fact that a man who would steal from them would just as easily steal for them and then from her. She closed the laptop. The shark had seen the blood. This is an extraordinarily bold move. Ms. Hale, or, I suspect, Mrs. Harris. It is. I agreed. Her attitude was completely transformed. She was no longer a CEO swatting away a gnat. She was a strategist looking at an asset. What do you want? She asked. I want my money back, I said, my voice perfectly level. All of it. The $500,000. I want it wired to a new account. In my name only. By close of business tomorrow. That's complicated. The funds are tied up. You're a brilliant woman, Mrs. Alvarez. You'll uncomplicate them. Because if you don't, this USB and the rest of the data goes not just to Viridian Capital, but to the SEC. You can absorb a bad hire. You cannot absorb a federal investigation into your due diligence. You will give me my money back to make this go away. She nodded slowly. She respected the checkmate. And, I said, leaning in, I want him left with absolutely nothing. I want you to drain him, just as he drained me. But I don't just want him fired. I want him humiliated. He built his entire world on this illusion of power. I want you to be the one to tear it down. In public. A slow, cold smile finally touched her lips. It was not a smile of warmth. It was the smile of a predator who had just been given permission to hunt. I believe, she said, we can arrange that. The wire transfer hit my new private account at 11:03 a.m. on Thursday. $500,000. Alvarez was a woman of her word. The first part of the transaction was complete. Now, it was time for the second. The plan was, by Alvarez's design, elegant in its cruelty. She had arranged the final partnership dinner at a place called Taven, a glass-walled restaurant in downtown Phoenix, known more for its power broker clientele than its food. This was where Mark believed his new life was being signed and sealed. He was in the bedroom, adjusting the cuffs on a new shirt. He was electric, vibrating with a smug, triumphant energy. Eliza, he called out. I walked to the doorway, pulling my robe tighter. I had spent the day performing anxious fragility. I think I'm just going to stay here tonight, I said, my voice intentionally weak. I'm still feeling so overwhelmed. I don't want to embarrass you at your big dinner. I feel like I might just cry. He looked at me. His relief was disgusting. I was not a wife. I was a problem, and I had just graciously benched myself. That's probably smart, baby, he said, turning back to the mirror to fix his tie. That's a good idea. You just rest. Mom will be by in the morning to check on you. This is just... It's a huge night. I needed one last thing. Mark, I asked, letting my voice tremble. What if I need you? What if Leo's fever comes back? His face, which had been bright with anticipation, hardened in an instant. The mask dropped. He walked over to me, his voice a low, terrifying hiss. "Do not call me," he said, his finger jabbing the air near my face. "Do you understand me? This is the rest of my life. This is our life. If you do anything to jeopardize this deal tonight, I swear to God, Eliza, I will make sure you regret it. They will never find you. I will make sure you never, ever see your son again." My hand was deep in the pocket of my robe, my thumb holding down the record button on the burner phone Jenna had given me. I understand," I whispered, letting a tear fall. "I'm sorry. Good luck." He softened, seeing my submission. He pecked my forehead. "Good. Just get better." "I'll see you in the morning." He walked out of the house, smelling of victory. The moment his car was down the street, I was on the phone to Jenna. "I've got it. It's done." "We're already filing," she said. The past 48 hours had not been idle. While I was playing the broken doll, Jenna had been building the gallows. She had taken our entire case, the forged loan documents, the wire fraud evidence from Highwater Development, the surveillance log kept by Margaret, the audio recording of them plotting my next episode, and presented it not just to a family court judge, but to the white-collar crime division of the Phoenix Police Department. We had filed an emergency ex parte motion for a restraining order and temporary sole custody. We had filed a criminal complaint. We had affidavits. We had bank statements. We had everything. We were just waiting for the perfect moment to serve the papers. At 8:30 p.m., Jenna, who was with me at her penthouse, got a text from Gus. He was at Tavin's bar. They're on appetizers. Alvarez just raised her glass for a toast. "It's time," Jenna said. I picked up my phone. My heart was hammering, but my hand was steady. I dialed 911. 911. "What is your emergency?" The voice was bored. "Hello," I said, my voice clear and cold. "My name is Eliza Harris. My husband is Mark Harris. I believe you have a record of a wellness check he called on me last week." A pause. The sound of typing. "Yes, ma'am. I see that. Is everything all right?" "No," I said. "I need to request a wellness check. For him. He is currently at Taven Restaurant. The address is 7 East Adams." "Ma'am, what is the nature of the situation? Are you at the restaurant?" "No. I am at a secure location. He just threatened me, explicitly. He said I would never be found and that I would never see my son again if I interrupted his dinner. I believe he is a danger to me, and potentially to himself and others. He is deeply unstable." The dispatcher's tone became skeptical. "Ma'am, he threatened you, but he's at a restaurant and you're safe." "Yes," I said, "and I have proof. My attorney, Jenna Hale, is, as we speak, forwarding a file to the dispatch supervisor. It contains a time-stamped audio recording of the threat he made less than 2 hours ago, along with a filed police report for bank fraud, forgery, and identity theft. He is not just unstable, he is a criminal, and he is at that table right now." There was a long silence on the other end. No more typing. "Ma'am," the dispatcher said, her voice entirely different, sharp, focused. "We have received the file. We are dispatching officers immediately." "Thank you," I said. "Ma'am," she added, just before I hung up, "are you and your child in a safe place right now?" "Yes," I said, looking at Jenna as she smiled, grim and triumphant. "We are." I disconnected the call. He had used 911 as a weapon, counting on the stereotype of the hysterical, postpartum woman. I had just used it as a sniper rifle, backed by an arsenal of truth. I was not there. Of course. I was miles away in Jenna's penthouse, watching Leo sleep peacefully in his travel crib, the soft sound of his breathing the only noise in the room. I was safe, but Gus was there. He was at the bar, nursing a club soda, watching the entire scene unfold in the glass-walled private dining room. He recounted every perfect, terrible detail for me later. Mark, he said, was in his element. He was holding court, his tie loosened just enough to look relaxed, his voice confident. He was charming the other Scylla partners, telling an anecdote that had them all laughing. He had his glass raised, toasting Mrs. Alvarez. He was the wolf who had just been invited to guard the hen house, and he was savoring the taste of his victory. Alvarez, to her credit, was playing her part beautifully, looking impressed, letting him bask in the glow. The main course had just been cleared when the door to the private room opened. It was not the waiter. It was 2 Scottsdale police officers, and the universe, in its infinite wisdom, had sent me a gift. The lead officer was Riley, the same man who had stood on my porch, his hand on his weapon, looking at me like I was a piece of trash. Gus said the laughter at the table died instantly. Mark's smile froze, his glass still in his hand. His head snapped toward Alvarez, his eyes flashing with a sudden, panicked rage. He thought she had set him up. He thought this was a negotiation tactic, a corporate betrayal. He had no idea the call was coming from inside his own house. Mrs. Alvarez, ever the professional, placed her napkin on the table and slowly stood up. Her voice was not loud, but it cut through the silence. "Mark," she said, "I believe these officers are here for you." Mark's face went white. Officer Riley stepped forward, his expression all business. "Mark Harris." Mark, his voice tight, nodded. "What is this?" "Sir, we're responding to an emergency 911 call placed by your wife, Eliza Harris, regarding credible threats against her life. We are also here to serve this warrant for your arrest." Mark scoffed, a desperate, choking sound. "My wife. She's unstable. I told your partner that last week. This is a joke." "It's not a joke, Mr. Harris," Riley said, his voice flat as he pulled the folded warrant from his pocket. "The warrant is for felony bank fraud, forgery, and multiple counts of wire fraud." The Scylla partners just stared. Their faces were blank masks, their eyes already calculating the blast radius. This was not a domestic dispute. This was a financial crime. This was a man who had lied to them. "You can't," Mark whispered, looking around the table. "Alvarez, this is a mistake. Tell them." Alvarez just looked at him, her expression as cold as a morgue. "I'm afraid there's no mistake. Mark, thank you for your time." "Stand up, sir," Riley commanded. "Put your hands behind your back." Mark was frozen. He was still half-seated, his mind unable to process the total, public annihilation. The click of the first handcuff snapping onto his wrist was, Gus said, the loudest sound in the room. He was hauled to his feet, his expensive dinner ruined, his future evaporating in front of the very people he had tried so desperately to impress. And as Mark was being perp-walked past the main dining room, his face a mask of sweat and disbelief, a second team of officers was ringing the bell at Margaret's quiet, immaculate home. While her son's dream was imploding downtown, her own was just beginning. Gus had a man watching. She answered in her silk robe, a confused, annoyed expression on her face, which turned to pale horror as they presented their own warrant. Conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury, for the journal she had falsified. Gus said he followed them out to the valet. As Officer Riley held the police car door open for Mark, he paused. He leaned in, his voice low, just for Mark to hear. "That wife of yours," Riley said. "She seemed real out of control last week. Huh, I guess she had a good reason." And in that moment, Mark finally understood. He looked at Riley, his eyes wide with the horrifying realization that the system he had tried to weaponize had turned on him. The police he had used to terrorize me were now the very men putting him in a cage. The trial was not a long, drawn-out affair. Jenna had filed a motion for a speedy trial, and the evidence was so overwhelming that the defense barely had room to breathe. Mark and Margaret, sitting at their table with their expensive lawyers, looked small and gray. They had built their entire case on the foundation that I was unstable, and that foundation had been systematically demolished. The star witness against Mark was not me. It was Mrs. Alvarez. Having secured full immunity for Scylla Investments, she took the stand as a cooperating witness. She was cold, surgical, and precise. She detailed Mark's fraudulent pitch, his attempt to use stolen assets as his buy-in, and his plan to steal proprietary data from Viridian Capital. She did not portray him as a monster. She portrayed him as a bad investment and a common thief, which, in her world, was worse. But the moment that sealed their fate, the moment that sucked all the air from the courtroom, was when the prosecution played the audio files. First, the recording from the baby monitor. The sound of Margaret's smooth, cultured voice echoed in the dead silent room. Just one more episode. Something the police or a doctor can witness. She'll be declared unfit. It will be a mercy, really. I watched a jury member, a mother of 3, close her eyes. Then, they played the recording from my phone, the one from just before Mark's victory dinner. His voice, low and seething with menace. I swear to God, Eliza, I will make sure you never ever see your son again. When I finally took the stand, I was not the terrified woman from the emergency room. I wore the charcoal gray suit, my hair was pulled back, and my voice was steady. I was not a victim. I was the architect of their downfall. I calmly walked the prosecution through the bank statements, the forged signature on the loan, the function of the keylogger, and the timeline of Margaret's surveillance. I was not the hysterical woman they had described. I was a competent, intelligent woman who had been pushed, and who had pushed back. The verdicts were a formality. Mark was found guilty on all counts: felony fraud, forgery, identity theft, and making criminal threats. Margaret was found guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud and perjury for the journal she had submitted to the state. The civil court and family court followed immediately. I was granted a divorce on grounds of fraud. I was awarded full, sole, and permanent custody of Leo. The fraudulent second mortgage was nullified. The house was signed over to me, and I was awarded all funds from the Highwater Development LLC, plus damages. I sold the Scottsdale house within a week. The final scene was not in a courtroom. It was in Jenna's beautiful, sunlit office. Leo, now healthy and almost walking, was happily smashing a soft block on the floor. I was signing the final document, the one that closed the sale of the house. Jenna was on the phone, looking out the window at the Phoenix skyline. Yes, I see. Thank you for the confirmation. Goodbye. She hung up and turned to me, a small, satisfied smile on her face. It's done, she said. He just lost his final appeal. He's being transferred from county to the federal prison in Tucson. He got 7 years. And Margaret? I asked, my voice quiet. 18 months, Jenna said, for the perjury. She reports to the state facility next Monday. A long, slow breath I had been holding for nearly a year finally escaped me. It was over. My phone buzzed on the desk, a text message from a blocked number. I did not need to guess who it was. I opened it. Just 4 words. You ruined my life. I looked at the message. He still did not understand. He had confused me with himself. I deleted it, the action clean and final. I stood up and walked over to the playpen. Leo looked up, his face breaking into a wide, happy grin. I bent down and lifted him into my arms, his solid, warm weight against my chest. He was real. He was safe. I turned to Jenna, my sister, my savior. She was watching us, her expression full of a quiet pride. Let's go home, I said. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you are tuning in from, so drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Please subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it extra support by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.